Good afternoon to everyone. I am Stephanie Fullente, your host for today's debate. In the topic, what is more reliable and believable? Why Cavite Mutiny happened? And just a few reminders for the both sides. All of your statements should be true and all of the resources should be reliable and stating facts only. Now, I will introduce to you our debaters. In the proposition side, we have Farouk Macaraya, Luego, and Eduard Jamir. While on the other, we have the opposition side that consists of Ferchelle Malazzab, Triz, and Junairah H.Ali. So for the audience, what do you think is the real reason why Cavite Mutiny happened? Which side of information do you think is more reliable and believable? We're going to find that out today. Our history has a big impact on what we have today. In commemoration of the important and significant events throughout history, we continuously celebrate in the remembrance of the sacrifices of our ancestors to attain the freedom of what we enjoy now. But there is one event in our history that we should not forget, the year 1872. It is a very important event, but why? Because there is no 1896 revolution without the 1872 Cavite Mutiny. Now let's start. Listen and learn to the two versions of Cavite Mutiny. May I now call the first speaker from the proposition side. I will now give you time to speak. You may now start.
The Cavite Mutiny, which occurred on January 20, 1872, was a big uprising by 200 Filipino soldiers and employees of the Cavite Arsenal. This uprising served as a pretext for Spanish repression of the fledgling Philippine nationalist movement. The mutiny was quickly put down, but the Spanish regime under the reactionary governor Rafael B. magnified the incident and used it as an excuse for crackdown on those Filipinos who had been calling for governmental reform. Ironically, the harsh response of the Spanish authorities served ultimately to promote the nationalist cause. Several academics from the Philippines were detained and charged with working with the mutineers. Three priests, Jose Burgos, Jacinto Zamora, and Mariano Gomez, were publicly executed after a brief trial. Afterward, the three died as martyrs for the cause of Philippine independence.
It was a good information coming from the proposition side. Now may I call the first speaker from the opposition side. You may now start.
This opposition side will debate the Spanish version of the Cavite Mutiny. We'd like to highlight four reasons why this side believes the Spanish version is more reliable than the Filipino version. Cavite Mutiny is a rebellion against the Spanish government. For the first point, Filipinos are thought to have decided to overthrow the Spanish rule. Second, Filipinos are guilty of revolt and sedition, which justifies the deaths. Third, the mutiny occurred before Izquierdo was appointed to be the Governor General. And finally, there was a coincidental feast in Sampaloc and fireworks display for the festival, which they mistook as a sort of resistance.
That was a good opening from our first speakers for both sides. Now may I call another speaker to defend the Filipino side. You may now take the floor.
There are two stories of the Cavite Mutiny, and each has its own narrative. However, as a Filipino, I am more convinced by the testimony of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, a Filipino physician, researcher, and historian. According to his interpretation, it is a sort of protest by laborers and soldiers against the inadequate leadership of Governor General Rafael B. Izquierdo. They were dissatisfied because Izquierdo disallowed the development of arts and trade school, as well as loss of their privileges.
According to the official report of Governor Izquierdo, he have been told since 1869, taking advantage of a group that had left behind plans of an uprising but was not carried out because of the earthquake of 1862. There existed in Manila a junta or center that sought followers and that as a pretext they had established a society for the teachings of arts and trades. Hence, General Izquierdo prohibited the founding of a school of arts and trades.
The construction of the said school did not proceed because, according to Dr. Tavera, The Spanish friars and the Governor-General Izquierdo feared that Filipinos would have wisdom and knowledge and that they, the Spanish friars, may also lose power, so they took action and prevented it. They used the revolt and informed the Madrid government that the Filipinos revolted because they wanted to remove the Spanish rule in the country and achieve independence. Thus, the Cavite Mutiny paved the way for the Spanish authorities to frame the priests Gumburza as the instigators of such event.
The Spanish government only did their part in preventing insurrection from happening because the Filipinos are already committing sedition to the Philippines. Remember that insurrection and sedition is a crime. The Spanish government is receiving anonymous communications about the Cavite Mutiny, and the conspiracy had been going on since the days of La Torre. It is said that they met either at the house of Padre de Tavera, the historian who wrote the Filipino version of Cavite Mutiny, and the native priest Jacinto Zamora. If this hidden agenda is not true, then why did the letter informing about the great uprising that would break out against the Spaniards at Cavite happen?
200 Filipino soldiers and employees led a brief insurrection at the Cavite Arsenal, which served as justification for Spanish persecution of the fledgling Philippine independence movement. Ironically, the aggressive response of the Spanish government ultimately helped to advance the nationalist cause. Izquierdo used the mutiny to implicate Mburza and other notable Filipinos known for their liberal leanings. Prominent Filipinos such as priests, professionals, and businessmen were arrested on flimsy and trumped-up charges and sentenced to prison, death, or exile.
As said by Governor General Rafael Izquierdo directly, the two accounts added to and supported Montero's account. A 60-page letter from Izquierdo to the overseas minister details the military events of the revolt as well as a description of the nature of the scheme that motivated it and his suspicions regarding its instigators. Since it is a confidential letter to a superior and has a high credibility for what actually happened, he had no justification for telling the overseas minister a different story about these facts. In truth, Spaniards going by the name of Montesinos and Morquecho have engaged in similar behavior, most likely out of bitterness for their own incarceration. This is especially true of Montesinos, who had previously been jailed for gambling debts and later detained again. Their involvement in the uprising is compelling evidence for Izquierdo's claim that the uprising wasn't only a mutiny over personal differences, but rather a movement to overthrow Spanish power. I also want to underline that Rafael Izquierdo and Montero's testimonies suggested that the conspirators from Manila and Cavite intended to kill senior Spanish officers before slaughtering the friars. In conclusion, we maintain that the Spanish version is more trustworthy based on the data provided.
The loss of privileges enjoyed by the workers of the Cavite Arsenal, such as exemption from tribute and forced labor, led to the Cavite Mutiny, an attempt by locals to overthrow the Spanish authority in the Philippines. The democratic and republican books and pamphlets, the lectures and sermons of the Spanish proponents of these noble ideas, the eruption of the American publicists, and terrible practices of the insensitive governor that the ruling government appointed to lead the nation. Filipinos implemented these concepts in the context of the circumstances that gave rise to the idea of obtaining their independence.
Montero's narrative states that the uprising was primarily caused by the removal of privileges enjoyed by Cavite arsenal workers, such as the ability to labor without being paid tributes. However, other grounds were also listed, such as the Spanish Revolution, which overthrew the government. An unrestrained press has escalated malicious propaganda. In addition, reaching the Philippines are both Republican and Democratic publications and pamphlets. The presence of a particular segment of the native clergy who, out of animosity toward the Spanish friars, conspired and supported the rebels who were enemies of Spain. In this version, it was deemed that the event that occurred in 1872 was planned earlier and was considered to involve the native clergy. It was implied that the conspirators planned to eliminate high-ranking Spanish officers to be followed by the massacres of the friars.
Throughout the early history of our nation, Filipinos have experienced many difficulties during its colonization, and this is the same with the situation of the Cavite Mutiny. With the aid of Dr. Taverna's perspective, we have established evidences on our side that the Filipino version is more reliable. First, with the cause of the revolt due to the revocation of privileges, suppression on education, and the false implication on the three priests, also known as the Gomburza, because they were said to be advocating political reforms. Filipino know that Spanish see themselves above us and that communicating peacefully would not achieve any results. Consequently, they resorted to an insurrection. The oppression became intolerable and Filipinos chose to fight not merely for political interest but to gain freedom from our colonizers.
Thank you so much to our debaters. I can see that all of you tried your best to defend your chosen side. But the truth behind this controversy is still unknown. And based on your given information, each version has its own uniqueness. But my decision favors the Filipino side. The first was that there was a real dissatisfaction among the workers at the Cavite Arsenal. It is just a rebellion of soldiers and laborers who had been stripped of their privileges and forbade the establishment of art and trade school by the Governor Junairah H.Ali. Second, his reinstatement of obsolete policies and introduction of stricter laws prompted Filipino soldiers and workers to revolt against Spain. The Spanish government has produced evidences supporting that the Gomburza led the rebellion, which is not true. It is part of their plan to show to the Filipinos what will happen if they go against the Spanish. Many Filipinos sacrificed their lives to attain independence. This Cavite Mutiny controversy leads to the victory on what we hope for. This mutiny is a way to gain independence on June 12, 1896 revolution. This may be one of the tragic events in our history, but we should not forget to be grateful to those who suffered enough to get this victory. Thank you to the opposition side for managing to defend your part, and congratulations to the proposition side for coping up with the challenges and managing to defend your side. And of course, a big thanks to the audience for staying till the end of this debate. Thank you.